Hello chess fans, in today's video I am going to share 3 games where I played the Scotch Gambit. Game 1 starts with e4. e5. Knight to f3. Knight to c6. d4. E takes d4. Bishop to c4. Bishop to c5. c3. D takes c3. In this position, can you find the best move for white? It's bishop takes f7 delivering check. After the king captures the bishop, you move your king to d5, creating a fork between the king and the bishop. The game continues with c takes b2. I recaptured the pawn with the bishop. Knight to f6. Queen to c4. d6. Short castle. Queen to e7. e5. We exchanged knights. Rook to e1. Knight to d7. Knight to d2. c6. Knight to f3 putting pressure on the pawn. King to d8. Rook a to d1. King to c7. Knight captures the pawn on e5. Rook to e8. Queen to f4. g5. Queen to g3. King to d8. I move the knight to c6, delivering check while also creating a discovered attack on the queen. Pawn captures the knight. Rook takes queen, and then the rook captures the rook. I move my bishop to f6, pinning the rook to the king. My opponent then resigned. Game 2 starts with e4. e5. Knight to f3. Knight to c6. d4. E takes d4. Bishop to c4. Queen to e7. Short castle. h6. Bishop to f4. e5. Knight takes d4. Knight to e5. Bishop to b5. c6. Bishop captures the knight on e5. Pawn recaptures the bishop. The knight captures the pawn on c6, offering a temporary sacrifice. The pawn captures the knight. I then recaptured the pawn with my bishop, creating a fork between the king and the rook. Bishop to d7. I capture the rook. Knight to f6. Knight to c3. g6. Knight to d5. We exchanged knights. Bishop to g7. c3. Short castle. Queen to f3. King to h7. Rook a to d1. f5. We traded pawns. Queen to g3. e4. Rook f to e1. Bishop to e5. Queen to e3. g5. Bishop takes e4. Bishop to f4. The bishop captures the bishop on f5, delivering check. My opponent then resigned. Game 3 starts with e4. e5. Knight to f3. Knight to c6. d4. E takes d4. Bishop to c4. h6. Short castle. Bishop to c5. c3. D takes c3. Bishop captures the pawn on f7. King takes the bishop. Queen to d5 delivering check. King moves to f8. Queen captures the bishop. d6. Queen captures the pawn. Bishop to g4. h3. Bishop retreats to h5. Bishop to f4. Knight to f6. Knight b to d2. King to g8. Queen to b3 delivering check. King to h7. Queen captures the pawn on b7. Knight to e7. Queen retreats back to b3. Rook to f8. Queen to d3. King to h8. We reposition our bishop. b3. Knight to c6. e5. Knight to d5. We exchanged pawns. Knight to c4. Knight d to b4. Queen to d2. d5. Knight c to e5. We exchanged knights. Knight to c6. Bishop to g3. Bishop to h5. Knight to d4. We exchanged knights. Queen to f6. Queen takes d5. Bishop to f7. We reposition our queen. Rook f to e1. Queen to h5. Rook a to c1. Rook a to d8. Queen to c7. a5. Queen to e5. We traded queens. a4. We exchanged pawns. We reposition our rooks. I pushed my a-pawn. We exchanged rooks. I placed my bishop on e5, targeting the g7 pawn. My opponent resigned. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget to subscribe and tap that notification bell so you can stay updated with all our latest content.